Welcome to Transforming the Times. This is your host, Suzanne Strisower, and I'm glad that you're again joining me this week for another segment of Transforming the Times. And I am thrilled today to share with you a wonderful guest, Akuyoe Graham, who's going to be talking about spirit awakening. And she is in one of my 6 categories of shows that I'm going to do. And she could actually be in a bunch of them, but she's an inspirational author, and she's also an entertainer. And she also works sort of with spirituality and so many other things. So every week, I'm going to be taking you on a journey through at least one of these segments. Sometimes it'll be about sustainability and being green and living green, becoming green, and ways to be greener and connect with the bigger world and being responsible for our environment. Some weeks we're going to go and do spirituality, where I'm going to have guests on a wide range of topics. You name it, near death, all the way to galactic astrology. It could be mainstream astrology, but we could also do galactic astrology, and anything in between. It could be past lives, who knows, spirituality of some sort. And sometimes the other topics that we'll have are conscious causes. And so I'm hoping that some of the causes will have some resonance with you and something that you want to participate in, some way you want to get involved, some way you can help to transform the times. So we'll be doing some of those. Optimal health and well-being, like one of my other segments that we just recently did or going to do on the different types of healing and all the different modalities. So no telling where we'll go on those segments. And then also we're going to do stuff with eco-friendly travel and different places that you can go, get involved around the planet. And then there's a segment I also want to add, and that's about youth and young adults. So if you have kids or young adults and they want some way to get involved, be engaged, contribute, we're also going to be doing segments on young adults. And so I hope that there's something in all that that would make sense for you, that you want to get involved and come out and play with us, because this is about creating a global tribe. And so if you're watching this show, I know you're part of that. And so here's my offerings for you in that regard. So let's just jump right into the segment. And that is about our astrology for today and the upcoming week.
Hey, and welcome to your Cosmic Impact. It is the weekly Astro Alert for March 17th. We are still reverberating in the full moon from yesterday. We usually get about a full 3-day intense energy with a full moon. So you can expect to continue to feel that for the next couple of days into the beginning of this week. What the good news about that is that it's a relatively quiet week planet-wise. And when that's the case, what happens is you can think of the planetary movements as consciousness calibrations, like things are really happening in your mind and in your heart when the planets are really impacting each other. When that's not happening, it's really just the moon's energy that is more prominent, and that's really about your mood and what the days feel like without doing a lot of heavy lifting on the inside of your consciousness. So it's a bit of a quiet week, and so you can just allow the intensity of this past weekend to just sort of roll over you a little bit. I've got really good news in the Mercury department, okay? Because Mercury is about to enter what I call his free and clear period. So let me just do a quick overview about Mercury retrogrades. They get a bad rap. They're really not that bad a thing. In fact, they're a kind of a magnificent experience. Mercury is the archetype of the mind. Our minds get very full of information. And if there isn't a moment when the mind turns inward and says, okay, wait, stop. Too much, I got to digest some of this. And this is what's occurring when Mercury is retrograde. The physics thing that's happening is it just appears because of the moving bodies in space that Mercury looks like he's moving backwards in the sky. He's really not, but it looks that way. And the archetypal interpretation that we give that is this inward turning, stop out there, I got to process and digest this stuff that you just sort of bombarded me with for the last few months. And because the mind is turned inward during that 3 weeks that Mercury is retrograde, we tend to get a little confused in latenesses and obstacles and challenges and problems. That's over with, but Mercury has his what's called his shadow period, where he retraces his steps and covers his territory that he backtracked over, and that is coming to a close this week. And on Thursday of this week, he enters a period of about it's not quite 2 months, where he's free and clear, no retrograde in sight. This is good news for us. Things are moving fast in the arena of the mind. It's a great time to start projects, to make communications happen that you want to have, sort of land and be effective. It's just a really uncomplicated time. And in fact, the first thing that Mercury is going to do on Saturday of this weekend that's coming forward is Mercury is going to conjunct with Neptune. Conjunction means at the same place. Mercury is the mind, and Neptune is the sort of spiritual mind. And the good news about the spiritual mind is that we have a deep and penetrating experience of our spiritual sensibilities through Neptune's energy. The challenge is that energy can also be very cloudy and very foggy when it comes to needing to be precise the way Mercury likes to be precise. So once every 88 days or so, Mercury and Neptune meet up. It's kind of like having clarity meet up with your spiritual sort of fuzziness. This is a good moment because our spiritual fuzziness is kind of where we want to live in a spiritual practice. But if we get too out there in fuzzy land, then we lose our ability to navigate in a succinct and clear way. The other thing that I want to talk about is also coming about on the weekend, which is on Sunday, we have what's called the third quarter moon. There are 4 moon cycles. You're all familiar with the full moon. We just had one. You all know about the new moon. That's when the sun and the moon are together. Well, there's a third quarter moon and a first quarter moon. That's halfway in between each. It's a moment when the sun and the moon are at a square relationship with each other. Not so pleasant an aspect. And the third quarter moon is known as what's called the disseminating moon. You got to see all kinds of things that were normally shrouded in the hidden recesses during the full moon, during the light of the full moon. And in the third quarter moon, there's some responsibility to disseminate that information out. A third quarter moon, a square, is always going to be a bit of a crisis or a conflict. In this side of the lunar cycle, since you've learned something during the full moon, the responsibility is, what have you learned? You're going to be confronted with something probably this coming weekend. Should be a moment where you're going to be bumping up against who you're being in the world with an opportunity to face that conflict in a new and more wise way as a result of the consciousness shift that you've just been through. So the Mercury and Neptune conjunction that happened Saturday gives you some clarity from a spiritual place, and the confrontation of the third quarter moon on Sunday gives you that practical, real-life opportunity to bump up against yourself in a way that says, oh wait, I could do this a little smarter than I could last month. Have at it.
We have some interesting conscious causes and happenings this month. So for my segment and for my guest this time, I wanted to expand, and that's another thing I'm going to do on the show, is I'm going to expand our common understanding of things, because I think we need to break out of the territory that a lot of stuff lives. And so this is Child Life Month. And what this is honoring child care workers, whether it's in schools and hospitals, but where we don't honor child care workers is in, let's just say, the less positive places, in juvenile halls, in group homes, in places where kids have not behaved so well and they've gotten in some kind of trouble. So Child Life Month for me also extends into places where the kids are what I call throwaway kids. And that's actually going to be the topic of our segment today, is some of those kids and my guests' experiences there and me sharing mine. And so you're going to have a heartfelt segment of some interesting things when we finally roll out that segment. And this is March into Literacy Month. And what that means is helping kids and adults learn how to read. And so there's some amazing programs. There's Toys for Tots, and the American Library Association has a whole national program that you can plug into with your local library to get involved, bring books to the library, and help kids with literacy. And that also applies to our people who need to learn English. English is a second language, and there's many, many people. So March is all about literacy in all sorts of different forms. And it also is St. Patrick's Day today. And so St. Patrick's Day has traditionally been about 4-leaf clovers and pastrami and corned beef. And also it is about the color green. And so what I want to say is, imagine, let's look at a 21st century definition for that. So let's just say St. Patrick's is about the color green and healing. And the 4-leaf clover is about luck and well-being. And so use this day for healing and for well-being, because today is indeed St. Patrick's Day. So take full advantage of that for yourself. And then my eco-celeb for this week is Angela Lindvall. And she's fascinating because she is an actress and, swimsuit model. She's done all kinds of things. But then what she did was she actually took up the cause of sustainability, but she did it in a really interesting way. She got involved with an organization called Green Cross, and Red Cross, Green Cross. I said, what in the world, what could she have possibly done? And what she did was she took the model in one way of the Red Cross, but she made Green Cross. And so it's something that Michael Gorbachev started when he was in the Soviet Union, and it's for the sustainability of the planet. And it came out of the Rio summit way back when in the 90s. And so she is donating all the profits from her efforts to Green Cross to help make a difference, help make the planet more sustainable, and help all of the rest of us get involved and conscious of our planet. So I wanted to highlight her this week, and each week we'll have some interesting celebrity who's doing some interesting things on the planet. So she's our celebrity for this week. And without further ado, I want to jump right into my interview for this week with an absolutely amazing woman that I just was recently introduced to, but again, like you're going to see with all the people I interview, they're kindred spirits. And my guest for today is Akuyoe Graham. And as you guys know from being with me on other of my segments, many of my guests are new friends, but they're only new friends in this time zone. They've actually been with me over lifetimes. And so it's nice to have them reconnected, to reconnect. And some of you may feel that way about me, the show, my guests. And so I really encourage you to plug into your community, plug into the beings that you feel connected with, because that's how we're going to really make a difference and transform the times. It's not going to happen out there. It's who we've been waiting for is us. And so however you feel that, however you want to embody that, this is my gift to you. So today, my author interview, she's more than an author. She's an author, an actor, and an activist, and a very accomplished woman. And today I have with me Akuyoe Graham, her story is just remarkable to me. She was a tribal princess from Ghana. And just those words, a tribal princess, is just remarkable to me, what that means, and then what that embodiment and that responsibility is about, and then how her life has unfolded. First, being moved to London and then on to the United States, and finding her own voice in the journey. And that's been her life's work. So again, I'm interviewing another remarkable soul who's been on the journey of their life work almost since they were born. And so she is, as an actor, she's been on City of Angels, Chicago Hope, many other things, been in the movie American Pie, and she's written many books, which you can see on my table, and we're going to have some readings from that. She's done a one-woman play, and as an activist, this is where my heart is very fond, because she works with kids in the LA County Juvenile Hall system. And so the work that she's doing is remarkable. I wanted to bring it to your attention as a possibility for you also to get involved and as another way to transform the times. So I want to welcome you to the show today, Akuyoe.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you very much. It's my honor and great privilege to be here with you.
So I'm thrilled, Akuyoe, about just your being and all the stuff that you've done. So there's a fantasy to me about being a tribal princess. Did you ever get to really embody that in Ghana? Did you get to own that and be that when you were there, or you were just too young and didn't get to unfold that?
I was really too young, but I suppose you could say I was able to embody that through my family in terms of the opportunities that allowed me to have in Ghana in terms of education. My grandfather he had a school. And so I went to my grandfather's school, and I grew up in a family of educators, teachers, and people in service to government in terms of being ambassadors and things of that nature. So I got to experience being a tribal princess through the opportunities that my family had and then was given to me as well.
So kind of a life of privilege in one way.
You could say that.
In that world.
Yes.
And then also your name means blessed woman.
Yes.
And so I know in the African traditions that when children are born, when spirits come in, that your name is given to you as the gift that you're going to give to the village or the tribe.
That's right.
So what does blessed woman mean?
Well, for me, two things. I was born on a Wednesday, and so one of the names given to a girl child on a Wednesday is Akuyo, and the name was given to me. I was named by my father, and so blessed woman means that my part of my purpose and life's purpose is to be a blessing to those, not only of my own village, but to be a blessing wherever I find myself to be. So that was sort of the charge that was given to me. And we have a beautiful ceremony in Ghana that I really love. It's called the outdooring. When a woman gives birth, for the first 7 days after giving birth, she and the baby are incubated and in the home, and she's tended to by whether it's family or friends, close friends. And on the 7th day, at the break of dawn, she and the baby are outdoored, meaning literally they are brought outside into the world. It's I just love that ceremony so much. You're brought out into the world, and that is when family and friends are invited to meet the baby, and then to shower blessings upon that child, to give the name of the child, and to really make a commitment to holding that child in the light and to remember the purpose for which that child came into being, so that everyone that is at the outdooring, their charge is to help remember the purpose of that child. So,
I love that.
know.
I wish we had a translation for that in this culture, in this, world here
Yes.
in America. And Melodoma Somé, who I work with some,
Okay.
he taught about that and gave us some similar ways to do that. So if you're interested, of Water and the Spirit by Melodoma Somé,
yeah.
fabulous book, takes you on this road and on this journey. So in that vein, Akuyo, talk us through your life. So beautiful life that you loved, and when we do the clip from your one-woman show, you'll get to show everybody how you had your life, and then you got into the rigidity of the school system and how bound that was and not connected with the earth and how rigid. What was all that like for you?
Well, my mother, who is really one of my heroes in life, I feel that I got a lot of strength from my mother. I grew up with it was just she and I, really. My mom was a revolutionary in her own way, in that she left my father and she left Ghana. She had me when she was very young, at the age of 19. And my father had many wives, which is the custom of the Ghana people and the Ewe people. And so my mother decided that she wanted to see the world, but mostly she wanted me to see the world. I remember being a small child, my mother saying to me that no matter what, being African, being black, being a girl, a female, she said, you have the right to this world. This world belongs to you, and I want you to see as much of it as possible. So she took me to Europe.
I know. It's I mean,
really
how amazing and forward-thinking and not necessarily so easy either.
Not at all. I mean, that was what was so beautiful. She took me to England, to Europe, and leaving this life of incredible support to go into an experience of incredible struggle and challenge.
And where you're not loved,
no.
You're not recognized, you're not honored.
That's right.
You kind of have to make your way, and people really don't care one way or the other.
That's right. And it was at a time
the Western way.
Exactly, when women, being a divorcee was also kind of like not the norm. And so in the play Spirit Awakening, when I wrote my life story, the metaphor I used was that I was a speck of pepper in a sea of salt.
I love that. I love that.
I found myself, and the analogy was that, when you see a plane, it's big on the ground, but when it gets up in the sky, it becomes tiny. And that the same thing happened to me when I got on the plane to leave Africa to go to England. By the time I landed, I'd shrunk so small that I'd become a mere speck of pepper in the sea of salt. And then began my journey. And suddenly, everything I was wrong. I came from all this support, and suddenly I was in the cold. And my color was wrong, my features were wrong, my hair was wrong, everything about me was wrong. And so began my journey of trying to fit in. I started to hate the name Akuyo. I didn't want anyone to call me that. And in Ghana, because we had been colonized by the British, every Ghanaian had their tribal name and they also had their Western name. So my Western name is Charlotte, which is a beautiful name. However, I let
It's
go
not the
of
name of your
Akuyoe.
being, though.
No,
not the name
and
of your
I
being.
became Charlotte Graham, and on the phone, you would never have known that I was African. I mean, I did everything I could to become the best British girl that I could be, and it was a matter of survival. And even though my mother tried to, be a role model for me, and she was in many ways,
She couldn't
still,
take that journey away from you.
No.
You still had to go through the
I
struggle,
still had
the
to
strife.
go through it.
And I'm
because
sure,
she was going through it too, Suzanne.
Yeah, yeah.
She was going through it too. So it was, seeing the contradictions of, on the other hand, no, be proud of yourself, and yet seeing the moments where my mother also wasn't proud of herself.
Right, everything being undermined.
That's right. So it was quite a challenge.
So you're going to enjoy this because what Akuyoe is actually talking about is a journey of spirit that each one of us has to go through. Because generally where we live on the planet now, none of us are really honored. None of us are loved.
Yes.
None of us are blessed. And so this is the journey of spirit that Akuyoe is bringing to the world, which is what I so love about your work, Akuyoe.
Do you know who you are? I was always fascinated by airplanes. On the ground, they're big, huge. But when they're up in the sky, they become tiny. Well, the same thing happened to me when I got on a plane. Mama, when it was my turn to join you in London, I got sent in a plane. On the ground, I was amongst millions who looked like me. But as the plane rose higher and higher, I got smaller and smaller, just like what I'd seen looking up from the earth. So that by the time I landed at Heathrow Airport, I shrunk so small that I'd become a mere speck of pepper in a sea of salt. Lavender's blue, dilly dilly, lavender's green. When I am king, dilly dilly, you be my queen. In school, no one sang that song to me because I was African, and they couldn't see that I was a princess and could one day be queen. In Ghana, I wasn't colored. Everyone was the same as me. And the only thing that was unusual was if someone was without color. In this new world, living space was boxed and sold into little compartments called flats. No more cooking under the stars. The sun and the moon were now strangers to us, locked out by keys and bars and doors and windows. Earth and her daughter trees leased in places called parks. Animals barricaded in zoos. Human beings in apartments. Everybody in their place. Visitation at certain hours only, and don't dare visit someone without first calling to make an appointment. No more skipping barefoot on Mother Earth. Shoes and boots were necessary for the march on cement. No, Mama, please don't make me go out there to play. They look at me funny and they make fun of my name. Kwe Akuyoe, Akufikafu, Kwe Mokame Njebo, Bonja me Konu. They will only call me Charlotte, Mama. And they call me a gollywog. But you're a gollywog, Jimmy. I'm not a gollywog, am I, Mama? Umra, my darling daughter, don't cry, eh? If they call you something, then you have to call them something back, eh? You have to be strong. Probably, look at me. I'm #1 at Pittman Secretarial School, eh? Namon Smobo, who loves you, eh? Mama loves you too much, eh? Me Smobo too much, eh? Melinia, eh? Damoshi Mashabo, Melinia, eh? Damoshi Mashabo.
So, okay, so, I mean, I can't believe how you got out so, like, unscathed and not schizophrenic and not depressed, but really with your head held high and your being and your presence and your power intact. But I don't imagine it was always that way.
No, it wasn't. I mean, I think that's what's really, that's the stuff that really, I think, impels and compels my work as a performing artist, and especially my work with the youth that I work with, because there is that part of me that really understands the woundedness and the deep struggle that comes from being so deeply uncomfortable in your own skin. And the trouble with that is that wherever you go, there you are.
Right.
So you can't really ever escape yourself,
Right.
and so I really do understand that struggle that so many young people go through. And as you said, Suzanne, and I totally agree, that is the human journey. That is the journey, I mean, for all of us to discover, rediscover
Right.
who we really are, and
Reclaim our truth, reclaim
yes.
our love. And again, this is one of those kind of moments for transforming the times, which is what this show's about, is how do you do that for yourself? How can you do that? And if this has a resonance in your heart and soul, to kind of engage that for yourself. So, okay, so you're in London.
Yes.
And in London, not so easy. And then you move to America.
Yes.
Now, why would you, because so you finally kind of get settled, I can imagine. Why would your mother move you yet again to America?
She had come here on a vacation and fell in love with the American spirit, which is a rebellious spirit. It is, America doesn't, at least at that time, and really still doesn't have the kind of class system that is prevalent in Europe. So when my mother moved to New York, she fell in love with the colors. She went to Spanish Harlem, so you had the Spanish and the African, the Caribbean, the European. It was very seductive.
And all those neighborhoods and
That's
all that
right.
kind of fun and yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
And all of that. So I just will never forget her coming back to London saying, "We're moving to America." So it was another move for me, and I'm glad she did. She actually said, I asked her, I said, "Mom, what really made you move to the United States?" She said, "I had to do it for you. I knew your soul needed to be in this country." And she's right. I think had I not come to the United States of America, I don't think that I would have made the journey back to Akuyo.
Right.
I think I would have stayed being Charlotte Graham, and
capitulating.
Yeah.
Capitulating to the culture in one way.
That's right.
Okay, so you get to America, and then that's when you really start to find your own voice as a teenager.
That's right.
In some kind of music school or drama school.
Performing arts high
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
And the interesting thing about that, though, when I moved to America, again, here's the whole thing with identity. At the time, I had a very strong British accent because I just lived in England for over 7 years. I used to talk like this, and so when the other black children would meet me, they thought, well, she's trying to be white, and so they gave me hell. So I thought, here again, these are people who look like me, but they rejected me. So I wasn't white, I wasn't black enough, and I wasn't white enough.
Or
and
the
I
right
wasn't-
kind of, even in your own culture. You
That's
were black,
right.
the right black.
That's right.
And
I was too black for this. And so I think now I'm at a place where, and again, what I bring to the children, I really want to question, well, what is identity? And, and is who we think we are who we really are? I mean, we've all been, we all believe that to be black means you have to be a certain way and talk a certain way. If you're young, you do a certain thing. But is that really true? Or is that something that we've collectively all
It's
agreed?
acculturated
Yes.
and not necessarily in service to us all.
Hello, so because recently I was listening to Macklemore and Lewis, who have made that beautiful song "Same Love." And when I first heard that, I thought, oh, this was a black hip hop artist, but he's not, and so it made me think, see, even you, it's like we all have these ideas
Of
but
what we think something is supposed to be if it has a vibe about something.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then I just thought, you know what? I'm willing to let all of that go. I want to let all of that go.
Yeah.
What we've all agreed it means to be black, what we've all agreed it means to be a woman, what we've all agreed it means to be a performing artist or to
And
be
the worst
human.
part is, what we all agreed to is not in our own best interest.
No,
it
it
is
isn't.
not the higher calling for any of us. And
That's
that's what we
right.
need to literally escape from, which is what you did.
Absolutely.
And so, okay, so lots of assimilation in this journey, Akuyo. I mean, not only assimilation in the culture, but assimilation in terms of what identity means.
That's right.
So what was, when you got down to the essence for yourself of identity, I mean, that's a hard question, I know,
Yes.
but what was the essence of Akuyo as an identity or a being that was then who you were going to be the stand for in the world or be that person that is sitting with me today?
Well, the name of the work I teach with the young people is called Unmasking Your Authentic Voice. So for me, identity is about being authentic to the self. The self with a big S, the true self, not the little self that has been seduced by the pictures and
Right.
the ideas that
Right.
society
The
has.
collective
The collective
consciousness and
yes,
ideas and what everybody thinks it's supposed to be, which it's not,
that's right.
and we need to escape from.
Absolutely, but the big self. And so for me, it's always about being authentic, even as I sit here with you now, to make sure that I'm breathing, that I'm really present with you, that I'm out of my head as much as possible, and that I really am taking this moment to be here with you fully. And if I can do that, then that is authentic and that is real, and it makes for a real exchange. And so that is really the identity that I'm interested in. And when you take that to incarcerated juveniles, because otherwise we're all incarcerated. I
Right.
mean, Bolozov says we're all doing time, and he's right.
Right.
So how do you, work with people that are incarcerated in a prison or in a jail, and the only way out is in, and the only way out is to go inward into that which is real, that which is authentic.
Which seems so counterintuitive and
Yes.
so where people don't want to go. And yet
No.
we can be in a prison with no walls around us.
That's
Which
right.
is the way it is for a lot of people, is that they are in a self-made prison
Absolutely.
of whatever it is, whether it's some disease, some illness, some
That's
emotional
right.
state, some limitation.
Not
And
being
again,
good enough.
That's right. And again, that's what Transforming the Times is about, is to give you a way through and to open up, to expand into all that for yourself in whatever way that is. So then came your one-woman play, Akuyoe.
Yes.
And the I love how animated you were on that, by the way. You just so dancing around stage. And it was so cute, how you did that. So talk about your one-woman play, and then we're going to show a clip of that briefly.
Okay, well, I was actually working there was a great acting teacher named Sanford Meisner, and he has one of the best definitions of acting I've ever heard, which is the ability to live truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
Oh my God.
So I began to explore what that is, and I thought, well, all of life is imaginary circumstances. Shakespeare said, life's a play. So I just began to really explore all these different words and images and ideas, and I thought, well, who am I? The question, who am I really? So I began to write poems and different ideas down, and it blossomed into Spirit Awakening. It was written in a matter of like a week or so. It really literally flowed out of me. It was like my body I would get up in the middle of the night because I had to write it down.
Wow.
It wrote itself.
Wow.
And when it was finished, I gave it an outdooring and invited some friends and started touring with it. I've been very fortunate in that in performing the piece, I got really great reviews, and it really catapulted me into a whole different level in terms of it as an artist, and to be able to pen something and be able to tour with it and have it really be meaningful to other people, and so Spirit Awakening, which is the name of the play, that came first, actually. And once the Los Angeles Times had written several articles, I began to get invitations from schools and centers to help youth come and write their own stories. And in fact, there had been a murder at John Muir High School in Pasadena.
Wow.
And the teachers came to a performance of my play, and they had read the article in the LA Times and said, we'd love for you to come and help our kids in some way. We're trying different things. We want to bring some artists into the school, and we'd like you to be one of them. And so I went to the school, and that sort of helped birth the whole foundation.
Wow. So it's really extraordinary about that work, and her story was when in that LA Times story that Akuyoe is referencing, she actually, they said that she is doing transformation through self-awareness through a one-woman play. And it really is true. I mean, because she is so alive telling a story, but your story is the metaphor for the journey that everybody has to go through.
That's right.
And that was the thing that was so extraordinary about that play. So, and then I loved that it wound up in the schools.
Yes.
And then,
I just wanted to say, Suzanne, I totally agree, because I think, it's great that we're taking journeys to Mars and all of that. And I really believe that actually the most exciting journey is the journey to the self, and that's where the
Yep.
21st century,
That's what it's all about.
yeah,
And if we don't make the journey to the self, there ain't going to be no self.
that's right.
The planet will
we'll destroy the
not
planet.
do
Yeah,
the right things. So,
that's right.
So, and that's what we're all invested in making the shift about. So, I find it really interesting that your being propelled you from being a tribal princess, the blessed woman, through all the preparatory steps. And this is what I tell people in their life purpose, is that your life purpose is with you whether you know it or not. It's
right.
preparing you. And so
Yes.
even if you're not there, you're still living it.
That's right.
And so you're in service to it. And so each one of these steps was the next step to help you birth the kind of a
right.
vision of transformation. So you started working with the kids in the school, and then you actually decided, I'm taking this out into the world.
Yes.
What made you decide on juvenile hall?
LA Theater Works, which is a wonderful organization, put a word out that they were looking for poets to take into the juvenile halls.
Oh, that's a
And
very forward thinking, by the way. Most
Yes.
of the time,
yes, it
juvenile
is.
halls are not looking for opportunities for the kids.
No, they're not. And this one time they were. So I applied for the position. And I just remember again, it was a very mystical experience because they wanted me to write a curriculum. And I sat up all night writing. And what came again, it was like writing the play. I was up all night. It was a fairly easy birthing process, although it was very visceral. I felt it with my body. And when I read what I'd written, I didn't even know if I could really teach it.
Right.
And I remember calling my own spiritual counselor and saying, listen to this, I don't know if I can teach it. And he said, well, you wrote it, you can teach it. So,
Well, it's kind of, but that level of revealing.
That's right.
And that level of intensity where you have to bring your core and essence to hold that space for another.
That's
is really
right.
what you're talking about. And then it's
Absolutely.
intense in
It
that
is
place.
intense.
And then of sort of a volatile environment you're going into.
That's right.
And not really environment you came from.
No.
And then it's like, oh my God. Okay, so what happened?
So my first day, I'll never forget, at Sylmar Juvenile Hall, I went into HRO, High Risk Offenders Unit. And
Brave, very brave.
See, I didn't know any of this, which is great.
Innocence is bliss, and it's a good
Innocence
thing.
is bliss. My ignorance really saved me, because if I had known,
You would have said, hell no.
yeah, exactly. And I think I would have had judgments and
Yep.
ideas about what I'm going to do and how. But I really was very innocent going into this. And I remember the first day, I will never forget, a fight broke out with the kids, and they took a chair. They were going to kill each other. And I thought, oh my God. And then I left, and the teacher was like, do you think you'll come back? And I said, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't. And I think that was, it was good for me to have that inquiry, as opposed
you have
to,
You have to. Because
exactly.
Now there's a realness to, this is an energy and a force to be reckoned with.
That's
And you
right.
have a vision and a possibility.
That's right.
But is there going to be a translation? Is it going to be
Exactly.
meaningful? Are you going to put your energy into that?
Exactly. And could I really do it? So
Yep.
there was a lot of meditation and just asking, well, spirit, life, God, I'm not sure if I can do this. And I think now looking back, that was probably the best space to be in.
Perfect
Because my ego was not involved. I really was very vulnerable. And I was able to take that vulnerability actually to my students. And I told them, listen, I don't know.
No breaking chairs when I'm here.
That's right. And I just said to
Please
them,
don't do that when I'm
right?
here.
I said, I don't know if this will work, but let's try. And I said to them, if you don't have a good time and I'm not having a good time, I'll leave, and we won't have to suffer each other, And they really liked that, because it was like, okay.
Nothing forced down their throat. They got
Yeah.
to be participants.
That's right. And we had an amazing time. It was really extraordinary. My beginnings were, amazing with these children. They revealed so much of themselves. They were so honest.
Yeah, they're real.
Very real.
Very real,
You
very
know.
raw, very present. Yeah,
Yes.
and that was one of the things that was amazing when I first spoke with Akuyoe, is that for many years I worked with kids in group homes, severely emotionally disturbed teenagers. And so there was not too far from where my kids were to where Akuyoe's kids wound up. And so when we talked about that story, it was amazing. And so if this is touching any of your hearts and your souls, there's juvenile halls in every country and county, and where places where kids are incarcerated. And so Akuyoe has a foundation for such things, and you can plug into that. You can also check in with your own juvenile hall or incarceration facility, because kids need real people. So if you're interested and up to it, it's a great thing to consider.
Absolutely. And it was so beautifully said, Suzanne. They do need real people, you know.
And they can smell a rat that's not that, and they will turn away, and that's the end of the story.
That's right. They'll give you hell.
Right.
You know, but they need people that are consistent in their lives to just show up.
Yep. And what they always used to tell me was, if you respect me, I'll respect you. If you're real with me, I'll be real with you. And so in some ways, those kids have the values that we should all have because there's no varnishing. And what I used to tell my kids in the group home, because they were forcibly taken out of their homes. They didn't wind up in jail, but they were taken out of their homes for some reason. And what I used to tell them is, I said, y'all are the lucky ones because you didn't say yes and bow. You said no, and by God, it was going to be different some way or other.
That's right.
And so your kids kind of took the next step, the next line, but they have the opportunity of redemption with you and your program, which is what's so cool about this.
That's right. I mean, many of the children that we service in the halls and the probation facilities have been deeply wounded. You know,
in so many ways.
So many ways, physically, emotionally, sexually, many of them, you know, and so their acting out or going into criminal activity is a way to get attention, you know, and I would say 80% of them are doing petty crimes. You know, there are some that have done some very serious things, of course. However, you know, many of them are just reaching out to
and the only way they know how, because they were never shown a different way.
That's right.
And I have to say, if all those kids, my rule of thumb when I was with them, and I know this is true for you, when I was with my kids, all I needed to do was to speak into their hearts, and I know it would be received. I didn't need to, it didn't even matter the words. It mattered that I spoke into their hearts, and they would receive it. They couldn't not.
That's right.
And then they would just drop in, and then, I'm sure that's what you're doing with them. And then letting them have their own voice and being heard through their writing and their artwork that you have them do, and all those things.
I mean, really creating a space where dignity can flourish. You know, that
no judgment,
no judgment,
and expression.
That's right, and knowing that their actions aren't necessarily who they are, that they are beings that perhaps have made some choices, you know, that are not the highest and the best. However, you know, the dignity still exists within them, and they can turn to that. They can turn that on.
That's right.
And they can make the choice to live from that place of authenticity, you know, which isn't really valued very much in our society.
No, and nor is there, I mean, we're lucky. Because us in our worlds take that for granted. I mean, if someone doesn't live there,
that's right.
And we, you know, because we have that, but they don't have that sophistication.
That's right.
And I remember that was one of the things that I love to teach the kids is how to be there and to be in that space. And once they got it, they found their own power.
That's right.
And then all you had to do is give them a voice.
That's right.
And they were off and running. And that's what you're doing. So give us some stories, Akuyo, from inside, for lack of a better word.
There's so many great stories. I've met so many beautiful children, many who are like family members to me. A lot of them call me mom, which I think is an incredible honor, by the way. You know, for a child to look at you and say mother, I think is no small thing. So I don't take that for granted. Right now, there's a young woman named Yanni, who's my assistant, actually. Through the California Wellness Foundation, I've been able to employ her to be the graduates coordinator, and she's a single mother and a brilliant young woman. There's another one, Christina Allegra, and Carmen Vasquez. Carmen, and she said I could share the story. She was our 2013 scholarship recipient, and when the day she was coming to receive the scholarship, she was supposed to have come with her mother, whom I've met, a wonderful woman, and the mother is very happy that we're working with Carmen. She's now at Channel Islands University, straight A student, and I had met Carmen when she was in a probation facility. And the day of the scholarship award, she came by herself, and I said, "Oh, where's your mom?" And something had happened. Her mother didn't want to come.
Which is par for the course oftentimes with their parents is they're
exactly
not connected.
That's right, you know.
And not supportive.
Not supportive. you know. And so I said, Carmen, was this difficult for you? And she said it was very painful, but nothing was going to stop me. And I said, Carmen, that's huge. You're a young woman. You're not even 20.
Yep.
She's not even 19. And you, in that moment, were able to choose that you were willing to go beyond your family,
Right.
beyond whatever was established in your family, that even though you love your family, you love your mother, you were not going to hold back. And I said, that's huge.
That's right.
Adults don't even do that, you
That's
know?
right.
So I was just so proud of her, you know, because she said nothing was going to stop her. She said, how did you get here? She said, I took a cab. It
Right.
must have cost, I mean, cabs in LA are not cheap.
Right.
So that might have been a $100 cab ride, but nothing was going to stop her, you know.
And I think the other huge thing in Akuyo's story about this young woman is from a youth camp, youth facility of one sort or another, she had whatever circumstances and became a 4.0 student.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
just because they have had times of incarceration does not make them worthless, or what I used to say is my throwaway kids.
That's
But they were
right.
my kids.
Absolutely. You know, we care very much about the environment, which we need to. And yet what I want people to understand is that, you know, if we can care that much about a rotten tomato, to care enough to compost it, because we know, we have faith that that rotten tomato is going to give forth something that we can use. Why not more so for our own children, you know?
Right.
I mean, let's not care more about the rotten tomato than we do the kids.
That's right.
You know, they also can be composted. You know, there is stuff in them that, if with the right conditions, they can change their narratives and they become exceptional beings with a lot to offer our world, you know. And so I'm just asking for the same care for the rotten tomatoes as for the children. I mean, that's really the bottom line, you know.
Well, and I'm going to change that word from composted to resurrected.
There you go.
That they're truly resurrected and coming into their
Yes.
own power and their own
Yes.
truth and their own beingness, and that we don't turn them into compost.
That's right.
Because right now our
Okay.
system composts everybody.
Yes.
You know, if you're not going this track, you get composted.
Mm-hmm.
But our kids, when they thrive, they're resurrected.
Absolutely. And isn't that the human journey anyway?
Yep.
Or the spiritual journey? You know, we are all, you know, if you want to go through the Christian faith, we're all, you know, prodigal sons and daughters. We're all, you know, finding our way back to the home, to the authentic self. So again, when it comes to the incarceration of children, I just really just want to make a plea that we allow them the space to be resurrected and to give them the space to find their voices and to participate as intentional, purposeful beings that they really are and can be.
And you know, it's interesting how you said that, Akuyo, because I had these flashes in my mind as you were talking, and I could see myself in the group home. And I can remember thinking to myself, you know, because my kids got on track and they knew when I walked in, this is how it's going to be now.
That's right.
And so, you know, we're not going to have any of that kind of nonsense going on, and we're not going to go through and do any of that kind of crazy shit. We're going to go do this.
Yes.
And that it's going to be this way. And at first they kind of looked at me like, who is she? Really? But after a while, they really got it.
Yeah.
And they owned it, and they honored that. And then they honored it because I gave it to them, but they honored it because they owned it. And then we had the next generation of kids in. I deputized my first bunch. They became the junior counselors. I didn't even have to work.
That's right.
And so what you're doing is you're creating, and programs like this and what Akuyo's done can actually help a whole generation, a whole bunch of our population and kids and
Yes.
society be resurrected, be made whole, be productive. And the other thing I found really interesting with my kids, now this is 30 years later, so I'm telling how old I am, but is that they got to be better people because they had that bandwidth. Kind of like everything that you went through in your
Yes,
journey here.
that's
When you
right.
have a big bandwidth, you can hold more space, and those kids could hold more space, just like yours when they
Absolutely.
make good.
Absolutely. You know, and I do want to also acknowledge there are some great organizations out there, you know, that are doing amazing work, like Girls and Gang, Right Girls, and Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and Homeboy Industries and Renaissance Center. I could go on and on and on. So we all do work together, because it really does take a village, and you'll find that when you find the kids that are really resurrected and turning their lives around, they are often involved in with many organizations.
And they want to give back.
They want to give back.
They actually want to be part of the solution.
That's
they're
right.
They're not held back anymore. And
That's
once you've given them that ticket,
that's right.
they're going.
That's right.
And that's what's exciting. So, Akuyoe, I want to do a couple more things. So one is I want you to tell everybody about your foundation.
Yes.
And then how people could plug into spiritawakening.org.
Yes.
And then we'll talk about this in a bigger frame,
Okay.
sort of a more global
Yes.
way.
Okay.
And then I'm going to want you to read some of the amazing things that you've done.
Well, as I said, once I wrote the play and started working the probation camps, I started Spirit Awakening Foundation because I really wanted the reach of the work I was doing to touch as many lives as possible. So I've trained other artists to teach the Spirit Awakening program called Rites of Passage. Writing in our program is used as a spiritual discipline because I'm not necessarily interested in turning them into great writers or performers per se. Some of them they have those talents, but our focus is a spiritual one.
Is their expression.
Yeah. We really are interested in the youth in our program exploring their own spirituality, not religion, but their own spiritual depth, their own mysticism, their own philosophies, and
their own beings.
Their own beings, And so the writing is used as a discipline. We have several questions that they contemplate. For instance, who am I? Who am I underneath my name, underneath my age, underneath the color of my skin? Who am I underneath even the thoughts I think about myself? Because oftentimes the thoughts we have about who we are is not true. So just different contemplative questions that they reflect on, and then they write about trying to unmask that authentic voice. One of the biggest heartbreaks is when I meet a child that's incarcerated who will be going away to serve years because they went to a party and did something they didn't even want to do. So a big part of when I'm teaching them is, learn to trust your intuition. And when something inside of you says, don't go to that party tonight, don't get into that car, or for many of the girls, run, don't go with that guy, trust that and listen to it and do what it's telling you, because so many of them find themselves in circumstances and situations that are beyond their control, and then it just kind of all
snowballs and crashes and burns.
And then there you are.
So let me ask you something, Akuyoe. In that process, when they get out of the hall and they've been through your program, and then they go somewhere, generally back to their neighborhoods, are they, like I had deputized my kids, do they become like that and attempt to redo their neighborhoods and rework things so that things are better, or they kind of?
I think the missing link, and this is why Spirit Awakening is now beginning to shift its focus, because I want to open Group Home Spirit House. I think the missing link, Suzanne, is that we are investing a lot of resources into them while they're incarcerated, which is great.
Close to $40,000 a year.
That's right. And we need to. However, when they come out, they go back into...
With zero.
Yeah.
With nothing.
They go back into these communities that don't have the same kind of resources. So all of that we've just put into them, and it's very difficult when you're 16 or 17 to navigate your way. I'll get a call. I got a call just 2 weeks ago from a young girl whose family was falling apart. They're all incarcerated. The parents are challenged with addictions. So she had to be taken out of that home, and she felt like she was incarcerated again, but she hadn't done anything.
Right.
So there's something in the communities that's missing, and we need to really look at that. And everyone knows, probation knows, the Office of Education knows, we all know that when they go back, there's something missing.
Right.
And so they do try, and this is where the community-based organizations come in. And so hopefully they will call, whether it's Spirit Awakening or another organization, get plugged in, get a mentor to help. We help them with referrals for jobs, employment, housing, counseling, whatever they need. However, the pull to get right back into their old lifestyle is
tough.
It's very
and
tough.
they know nothing different. So it makes
It's
it
very
really tough because, and I'm sure those of you watching know certain kids and families and people like this, that it's not just kids who are incarcerated, but a lot of people,
That's
and
right.
kids who are kind of in that circumstance.
And also the families sometimes feel threatened. You know, your child suddenly is a little bit more sophisticated,
Right.
or they have a little bit more self-respect and self-awareness, and parents, siblings feel very threatened.
Right.
You know, I mean,
The homeostasis has just been changed.
exactly. You know, it's like crabs in a barrel, and it's
Right.
like, I'm going to bring you down. You're not going to go, you know, to this thing or that thing. And so we try to, I try to offer them the things I enjoy, you know, retreats, whether it's to Esalen Institute, which we do every year for 5 days. And it's beautiful. They're exposed to different people from all over the world. They get to eat organic food and experience.
You're right on the
it.
Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
I mean, that's a trip from heaven. So I love that. But the other thing you do is you take some of your kids to Ghana, back
Yes.
to your own homeland.
Yes.
So what's that like, Akuyo?
Oh, we did it for the first time in 2012. It was a pilot program, and I wanted to see if it could work. It was unbelievable. We got to visit the slave castles and do a little ceremony there, just kind of blessing all the souls that went through that experience. And that was very, very powerful. And
That's kind of like the concentration camps, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. And that idea came from the kids, actually. Again, they said they wanted to do something that would help them redeem themselves, not only in the eyes of society, but for themselves.
Right.
And so when we go to Ghana, we visit some of the orphanages, we go to schools, we take clothing, we make donations, and it gives them a chance to come out of their little lives to see that there's a bigger world.
And then
you
they
know?
never go back.
They never.
Once they've done that, they never
They
can't,
are
they
changed.
can't go back. They're-
No. The same with Esalen. Once they go to that,
Yep.
it's like, no, I can't go back to playing small.
Right.
I can't go back, even if it means leaving my family. You know,
Right.
I can't go back to that anymore.
That's right. So I love that you're giving them a way out or a way through.
Yes.
And you know, that was one of the things that I thought about for transforming the times is a way through for
Yes.
people, you know, on whatever level they're working, spiritual or sustainable or
That's
like
right.
this. So in your program, Akuyo, Spirit Awakening, I love that you kept that thread through your whole life. I mean, that's really
Yes.
the legacy of your life and your being, a spirit awakening in all
That's
of its
right.
different forms. But how is it that people can play with you? If people say, oh my God, this is cool, and they'd love to do that with you, how can they do that?
Well, they can go on the website, send us an email, and stay in touch with us that way and see what we're doing. We have monthly trips, whether it's the museum or see Alvin Ailey or, you know, arts programming. We could always use mentors, you know, and to really and to plug in that way if they want to sponsor some of our programs, that's always welcomed, you know. But I try to answer every email that I get personally, and now Yanni will help me, and so we have many opportunities for people to be involved with our work, you know.
I love that. And I hope that if you're watching this and you're inspired, I hope that you'll do with the challenge to do something like this in your neighborhood if you're not in LA County or, you know, nearby, because this is needed all over.
It really
it's just
is.
that you've got such a beautiful model and, you know, and the generosity of your spirit that you're willing to open it up and bring in other actors and writers and just accomplished people and the
Yes.
experiences you create. That's what I do with my kids too. And they love that. They feel
do.
special because they've been given something special.
Absolutely, and that we value their expression.
Yeah.
You know, I love that we're able to publish their work, and at our annual event, which one of your executive producers, Carl Fink, was involved in, that they get to see, like you said, professional actors like Hilary Swank or Reverend Michael Beckwith interpreting their work that they've done. I mean, that is huge, you know, to be incarcerated and then look up and see Hilary Swank interpreting your work as if it were a monologue, you know, and we do that just to let them know that we do value who they are and what they have to give.
And
you know?
I'm glad you're mentioning that, Akuyo, because we have a clip of that I want to play now.
How am I going to end up? Dead? Alive? Still struggling? Or being what I was put on this earth to be? What I was chosen to be, not what everyone expects me to be. In my heart, there is a fire burning inside. A fire that knows that my dreams and goals will come true.
We have to stop blaming our parents for us not going to school. Time to stop bullying of the mind. Time for us to fight back and start anti-bullying programs. No more bullying me. Telling me what I'm good for and what I can achieve. No more of what? Padawan.
Before I became who I am now, I was the venom in the poisonous snake. I was the bitter taste of a sour green apple. I was the lost sheep on the edge of a cliff. I was the wound of the broken heart. I was the tears of the lamb who was slain.
When I look in the mirror, I see disappointment. I see a soul that has been bent, pulled, thrown, but not broken. It's still hanging on, but the self and hope that lies within. I see someone that has a lot of hatred for the world.
So I'm going to go to sentencing hearing next week to listen as they're given 61 years, 51 years. And so I just want you to know how real this is, that we are here because it makes a difference.
Michael Bernard Beckwith and Hilary Swank and,
That's right.
and some other wonderful people that you had involved with that. So that is great. And so if people want to get involved with you, how do they do that?
They can email me at info@spiritawakening.org. They can call me at 310-570-8190. So email, phone call, smoke signals, we'll hear you, you know.
That's right. And then the other thing is that Akuyo does have, on our show credits, you will find her contact information. So if you want to get a hold of her, we'll have that on the show
That's right.
credits for you so that people can find you. And so I want to close our session with a reading from first of your book of transformation, because that was the
Okay.
starting of this.
That's right.
And then something from one of your kids from inside, from Voices of the Unheard.
So this is the little book of transformation. And actually this little book is volume 1, the level 1 of the program. And as I had said earlier, Suzanne, one of the first contemplative questions we ask the participants in the program to consider is the question of who am I? Underneath all the labels and the judgments. And so
Who are you? And you can finally start to celebrate yourself.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then in lesson 2, it's called the Land of Healing, where we look at letting go. So through a ritual of purification, beliefs which no longer serve will be burned away so that we can create space for a more authentic and empowered identity to emerge, an identity which can help us respond to the difficulties in our lives with calmness and truth, strength and integrity. Once this has begun, we can view our lives as a hero's quest for self-realization, and then translate the extracted lessons from our day-to-day experiences into a new way of being, thereby creating an alchemical relationship with disappointment and pain. We are then more available to create a new life path for ourselves and to redefine standards for our lives and our world.
Oh, I love that.
So that's the land
So that's
of
kind of an
healing.
interesting poetry. And the name of that book again, Akuyo, which people can find at your website and Amazon, is?
The Little Book of Transformation.
And I love it. You can see it's thin.
That's
So
right.
if any of you have trouble going through this journey, the little book is a quick way there.
Absolutely.
Quick, but deep.
Quick and to the point. And I did it because I know how life is for
Harried.
very harried. So I thought it's just something that people can experience and still get something out of it.
Nice. And so read something now from one of your kids that was in the hall and their voice. And let's hear that, because I'm sure it will be profound in the way that they said what they did.
This is from the book Voices of the Unheard, which is a compilation of writings from students of mine. And this piece is written by Christine Allegra, one of the students that went with us to Ghana. What's beautiful about Christine is that when I met her, she was facing 25 years to life at Silmar Juvenile Hall. She's now out.
Out and doing well and thriving.
And thriving.
Okay, and that's the moral of the story here, y'all.
and a scholarship recipient of ours as well. So in response to who am I, she wrote, I am scared of both failure and success. I am afraid of the time I've wasted and the time wasted being afraid. I am lost in my mistakes and remorse engulfs me, pulls me under so deep that at times I feel it's impossible to rise. Yet I am strong and I am someone learning to draw strength from my fear. I am perceptive and blind at the same time. I make complicated things simple and simple things complicated. I am still finding me. My fear has held me in such a grasp, it has changed me.
Wow.
So she wrote that while she was not knowing where her life was going to go. You know, she's a terrific writer, Christine.
That's beautiful. So show everybody that cover again. So Voices of the Unheard, if you want more inspiration and more stories and more beingness from the kids on the inside.
Yes.
So what upcoming things do you have, Akuyoe? Where is the next part of spiritawakening.org going to take you?
Well, we're making the film version of the play because we figured, well, if the play can give birth to the foundation, what can the film do? And also because we recognize that we are in need of stories that really are empowering, you know, and especially stories where women are the central figures in those stories of empowerment, that women also do take the hero's journey to the self. It's not always young men, you know, and so we want to make the film version of Spirit Awakening. And so that's
I love that.
That's what we're
you know what's
doing.
really interesting is that one woman's stories like that somehow are more profound to me than a lot of other media,
Yes.
just because there's something we're giving birth to. And I could never do that. I mean, I've written a screenplay of my life, but I don't know that I could do that, Akuyoe. So kudos to you, and certainly you can't be all over the world doing a one-woman show, but you can have a movie that can make the global journey.
Absolutely, and that was the point, you know. So I've written the screenplay, and we're in that process now. So if somebody wants to help us make the film, come on board.
Well, Akuyoe, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, Suzanne, thank you so much. This was really beautiful, and I'm so grateful for your interest, not only in my work, but your love and care of all those children. And I thank you very much.
I hope you've enjoyed another segment of Transforming the Times. Kind of takes me back to all my times with my kids. I'm glad to see the work continues.
Thank you.
So for all of you out there listening, if you've enjoyed this segment, I really do encourage you in whatever way you want to be with kids, be with people that need your help, your assistance, your love, your care, your concern, and to help transform the times. Our next show is going to have some other interesting people on it. We're going to have aura painting. We're going to have someone who is a 3-time breast cancer survivor and who's written an interesting story about that. And another woman is going to be talking who's working with college kids who are making a difference. And so but she's even gotten flack for that. So it's not just one-dimensional. And then we're going to have a segment on urban food forests. So we're going to go sustainable at the end of next month. So come back and see us again next week for another segment of Transforming the Times. And thanks for spending your hour with us today.